Time for you to shoot. Who is your early finals MVP? Booker, Paul?
It's Book, baby, and CP3. Be cautious of what you're saying, big dog, because another topic for another day is who needs the MVP more, assuming the Suns win. Is it CP3 or is it my dog Book? But I think Book's the early finals MVP because what we know about the Bucks is that they win games by playing good defense. On average in the playoffs, they hold teams to 103 points per game. But the Suns have given them 118 back to back. The reason the Suns are winning isn't because the Bucks aren't scoring. Bucks got 108 points. First two, 108 points, 105 points. On average, the Bucks only score 109 points. So the Bucks are scoring their typical average. But the Bucks usually hold opponents to only 103. The difference right now is Book. Book gave him 31 points last game without attempting a free throw. Book gave him 27 points in game one and was terrible from the three-point line and was marginal at best from the field. So early MVP is the real driving factor to the Suns' success. Not that Chris Paul is not the driving factor to the Suns' team, but the reason the Suns are winning games isn't because of their great chemistry, isn't because of their stifling defense, isn't because of their great leadership, isn't because they're not turning the ball over. Was because they're putting up points. That's the only reason the Suns are winning these ball games right now. Bucks are doing their thing, but the reason that the Suns are winning, the separating factor is how many points the Suns are scoring. So the reason the reason Book should get MVP is because he's the best scorer.
Oh, I knew you were leaning. You know, on this show, we don't lean. We be objective, okay? We got rooting interests, but we don't lean. You were leaning there. You know what Coach said? If he leaning, just help him keep going that way he wants. I noticed you started off by saying, is it CP3 or my dog Book? Oh, your dog Book?
You like CP3.
I don't say my dog CP3.
That's my friend.
I don't say my dog.
You don't use the same vernacular. You're older than me.
I like.
You say my elder statesman.
Fresh. Look, all I know is it's CP3, and you should have stopped there. But your dog Book is a beast. We know what this is. But let's just play the game of hypotheticals. That they stay tied. Game one, CP3 looks better. Game two, Devin Booker. Let's just say they just keep going back and forth with that hot potato, right? If there's a tie, it's going to CP3 for the legacy play.
I agree.
We've noticed in voting interests right now, they try to get the most juice out of story, even more so than by production. Let's go to Terrell Owens and his Hall of Fame induction. And it took him not one, not two, but third ballot to get in part because they were looking at story and narrative more so than production. Same thing happens when you talk about an NBA Finals MVP. It happens fast in terms of the voting. Who we gonna give it to? Who we gonna give it to? And if it's anything of closeness, like, damn, Booker has this. No, Chris Paul's right there. They're going to go to Chris Paul for that legacy play. The impact credit also goes to Chris Paul leading up to these finals. Think about this team. Last year, did they make the playoffs? No. This year, they make the playoffs. They had additions, but what's the biggest addition? Chris Paul. So he's already walking in with some leverage in tow. Now, if you see how this is going to play out, let's play some of these number games as you tried to play. We don't want to use the Clippers series against Chris Paul, so I won't count it for Devin Booker as well. He has some struggles there, too, because of the mask. But let's go to that Denver series before we get to this Milwaukee series. Do you know in the Denver series that Chris Paul averaged more points per game than Devin Booker? Do you know, of course, more assists, right? But let's talk about shooting, 63% to 49%, Chris Paul favor. Let's talk about from the three, 75%. Oh, my God, compared to 31%. Chris Paul, without COVID, Devin Booker, without the mask, let's just isolate variables. Denver series, Chris Paul, he finished that one.
Yes, sir.
Right? He iced it. Even the Clippers, he iced it, but I'm going to throw that out.
Of course.
Right now, we're in a position where the last three games, Chris Paul's been averaging 32 points a game. Chris Paul's on fire, dog. He got his COVID legs. They ready. COVID legs. He ready to go out there and finish this marathon. It's CP3.
I like where you're going with that, but let's expand on it because legacy is going to matter, assuming the Suns win. Who's going to win the MVP? Yeah. Booker takes the first series. Dethroned LeBron James. He had 47 points, I believe, in the closeout game. Booker takes the first series against the Lakers. Booker outperforms CP3 in that one. Chris Paul takes the second series against the Nuggets. I'm going to give you that one. Booker takes the third series. One, Chris Paul didn't even show up for the first two games.
Well,
he wasn't there.
But
he wasn't there.
If Chris Paul didn't show up, they still be playing Game 9, Game 10 because Devin Booker wasn't trying to close nothing out by himself, was he? Was he?
That's fair.
That's fair.
But because Chris Paul didn't even score attendance, you got to give the third series to Devin Booker. Okay. But now I look at it like this. Devin Booker has the third most points in NBA postseason history in their first postseason appearance.
Yeah, he moving
behind
up.
Rick Barry, behind Julius Erving. He's only 32 points behind being the first scorer of all time in their first postseason appearance. I think that will play a factor. But let me go nuanced, because that's what we do on this great show. 2014 NBA Finals MVP was Kawhi Leonard. Not because of what Kawhi Leonard did that was so great, but because he stopped LeBron James from doing. 2015.
Wow, wait a minute.
It was. Look at the numbers.
You call Kawhi a clout chaser?
Look at the numbers.
Like he only got his because of somebody else didn't get there?
Because of what he stopped somebody else. Same thing with Andre Iguodala. If y'all don't think that's the case. 2015. Iggy wasn't the best player on the court, but he stopped the best player on the court from being. So we can find value not necessarily in your numbers, but we can find value in your perceived impact. The only reason Chris Paul had the game he had in Game 1 was because of Devin Booker. Devin Booker's presence made the Bucks say, look, you want to know who we have to stop? We got to stop Book, which allowed CP3 to eat. How do we know that's true? Because at the end of the game, what did head coach say? Bud's going out there and said, we got to put more pressure on CP3. We have to make him a bigger focal point, which means he was not always a focal point. That's why what we saw in Game 2, Drew Holiday full court press the entire time. Drew Holiday picking up CP3 at least at the half court mark because they were never paying attention to CP3. They were paying attention to Book in Game 1, which is why CP3 ate. So with that being said, even CP3 doing as magnificent as he did in Game 1 is a testament to as good as Devin Booker is. And then in Game 2, Devin Booker just showed how good he is. Either way, it all leads back to Book and his greatness.
Well, look, let's just be real about this. Devin Booker's the better player. We know that. He's the driving force. That doesn't mean that you're going to get all of the accolade that comes from being that driving force. Steph Curry comes to mind. Has he ever won a Finals MVP? Even when they won the Finals without what?
But let me push back. Let's get to the nuance, because it all comes back to Steph Curry and Kevin Durant.
Oh, God. I was trying to not say Kevin Durant, too. I said the one without KD.
I don't know if Devin Booker's a better player. He's a better scorer. You tracking with me?
No, I'm not tracking with you.
CP3,
I'm fielding with you.
CP3, man.
You trying to say that Devin Booker's not better than Chris Paul right now in the game of basketball? Forget who you know. I'm talking about what they show.
You might have to go CP3. But because
CP3
showed up, CP3 showed up and made the Suns collectively better.
But they got better as well. That's the only thing that I don't like when people say that. You forget I got better too. Devin Booker got better. DeAndre Ayton didn't miss 25 games.
Of course.
Okay, so first of all, we're not standing here and Chris Paul added on. We're standing here and Chris Paul adds on, and then you give him all the credit for being at the top.
But don't you think that Chris Paul helped Ayton get better?
Absolutely.
Chris Paul helped Bridges get better. Chris Paul helped Booker get better.
Yes. But I think you're giving a little too much credit. Let's
to CP3?
The credit, we got to check the credit limit. You can't have the black card on this one. You got to have a limit on this one. How much credit you going to get them boys? Because Devin Booker was coming. DeAndre Ayton was coming. The team was coming.
But
they were certain.
Book had been there for 5 years. For 5. He was coming. When was he going to show up?
Okay.
You know Chris Paul better. Well, the only reason I small interject is because Devin Booker's a better scorer. Kevin Durant's a better scorer. I think Chris Paul's a better player. I think Steph Curry's a better conduit. So I think, to your point, Booker will get the Finals MVP because he's a better scorer.
No, to my point, Steph Curry didn't get it even though he was the better player and the better scorer on the team. So he actually brings both our arguments together to prove my point, which is you don't always get it even if you're the best because of other circumstances, whether it's narrative or clutch moments, clutch shots. I always talk about how Chris Paul in Game 1, you said he was eating because they were focused on Booker. Yeah, the X's and O's. You're a former player. We've been in those meetings. But when you get on that court, even though they focused on you, they make adjustments. They're like, Chris is eating. And then they can't stop those adjustments because, one, we don't want all of a sudden Devin Booker to eat. And two, Chris Paul's being the wedge buster. Chris Paul set the tone. I could have wrote this down. I actually said it, but I should have wrote this down before the series started. Chris Paul's going to go ham this series, and he's going to be first. He's going to be the first one to say, I got there. Devin Booker, Game 1, wasn't an efficient game. 27 points, that wasn't efficient for him in his shooting. But Chris Paul set the tone. And now, all of a sudden, Devin Booker, not trying to take a shot at the little homie, yo dog, but he didn't do it first, which tells me something about intention, tells me something about what desire is, and it also tells me what you made of. Chris Paul made of something different because he's more experienced.
Well, you're on to something, and I don't know if people saw it. I saw it because I'll be watching the small things in Game 1. Chris Paul looked like he was playing to win MVP.
He is.
Right? Like, Chris Paul.
Why not?
Chris Paul's not just playing to win the game.
No.
Chris Paul's playing like, I know when all this said and done, I got to make sure I get Finals MVP. I got to make sure I get Finals MVP because when they start talking about my legacy, I need to make sure they don't do me like they do Steph and say that Steph ain't get no Finals MVPs. The whole time, Chris Paul's playing with that intention. I think Book is just out there playing. I think Book was just out there trying to get his buckets.
Don't let the smooth taste fool you.
Well, I
hate when people say, I'm just chilling. No, you trying. You just ain't as good right now. But you know this, Sel. You know, as a vet, and I was my freshman year in college, I wasn't worried about going to a national championship. I was a freshman. I think, I got 4 years left here, right? That's why
if I don't go my freshman year, we'll go again. Whereas the seniors on the squad and the redshirt seniors, they're scratching tooth and nail to get to the national championship because they know their days are numbered. And they also have the experience to realize, hey, nothing's guaranteed. Chris Paul is that redshirt senior, 36 years of age in the NBA. So he's sitting here like, I got to get Finals MVP because we might not be back. Booker, I don't think, had the same Finals MVP sense of urgency because Booker's just like, we here, my 6th year in the league. Surely I'm going to be back here again by game 2. Now I think Booker's awake. Now I think by game 2, Booker's like, hey, I want Finals MVP. What's going to be interesting to me is, are we going to start to see some tension when you see both of them trying to compete for this award privately that they would never say publicly?
Devin Booker shot 46 times in these 2 games. That's chilling. Hate to see him go hard. This mother sucker up here trying to get some. Look, they always talk about Kobe Bryant when they talk about Devin Booker because of their relationship. Respect to that. However, I think Chris Paul knew Kobe Bryant as well because Kobe famously once said, hey, I want to win, but I also want to be the reason we win. Hey, brother, let it out, Acho. Yeah, it's your show. Damn, if you can't cough at home, where you gonna cough at? That's how my wife, we go out sometimes. I was like, baby, it's okay, let it out. Excuse me, a little, no, too much. Okay, here's the thing. Kobe Bryant always wanted to be the reason. That's why him and Shaq, Shaq took 3 Finals MVPs. Kobe was a driving force, even though Shaq was the man. But the point is, Kobe was like, where my shine at? So when Kobe got with Pau Gasol, well, 1, Pau Gasol, you ain't Kobe, so you ain't gonna get to fight for this Finals MVP. But 2, he wanted it. There's nothing wrong with wanting it in your life. This is why you're super single, because you're too cool for school. Like me, when I was single, I wanted it. I was like, girl, you fine. We just met. I like you. We just met. How much it costs to go out and on vacation? Cash out. Whatever. I ain't talking to you no more. Anyway, let's get off of this subject right now because I'm telling too much of my sauce.